Yeah. Yo, 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 what is up? What is up? What is going on, everybody? This is the June 7th, 2020 episode of the Boxing Source radio show. I am your host, James Bell, the leader of the Boxing Source. You can follow us on YouTube by going to the Boxing Source. You could also follow us on Facebook. Just type in the Boxing Source and like the page. You could also, like us on Instagram or follow us on Instagram through the Boxing Source, and follow us on Twitter at Boxing Source 2. Number to dial in is 347-237-5539. Once again, that is 347-237-5539. Press the one key to get on queue, and you'll be able to talk live on the show. We have fairly busy show here for this particular weekend. We have a guest on that we will have here on the show in about a few minutes. And we will also look ahead to the fight cards that will be in Las Vegas on Tuesday and Thursday. Real quick, wanted to talk about the news that did come down a few hours ago in reference to the fight card that is on Tuesday, headlined by Shakur Stevenson there against Felix Caraballo. The co-feature bout will be affected as Michaela Mayer did test positive for COVID-19. That's right, Michaela Mayer tested positive for COVID-19, so she will not be in the co-featured event there for that fight card that is scheduled for this Tuesday. I know that she was very disappointed to get the news earlier today, and she posted on her Twitter page with that announcement, and that was shared through Top Rank that she would not be part of that card on June 9th. So that affects that fight card. That fight is scrapped. It was originally scheduled to have about, I think it was 6 fights on that card. But now it's going to be 5 fights. And none of those fights are a 12-rounder. That includes the Shakur Stevenson bout, as that bout is not for the WBO featherweight championship. Shakur Stevenson will be fighting at 130 pounds instead of 126. And then every other fight that's on that card will be either a 4-rounder or a 6-rounder. So that's what we have there in reference to that. So I wanted to, basically, get that out of the way here before we go ahead and we try to, get our special guest to call in. So, what I'll do is I will have them being able to call in, and once that happens, then we'll be able to talk about a few topics here related to our special guest. They are, a pretty vital part to the sport of boxing, or current sport of boxing here. This person, has been involved with the sport over the course of the past, I would say, it might be 5 or 6 years or more. We'll get more into that here in a few moments. and they just had a recent position that they have taken there. So this is what we're going to do. We will, basically had I contacted them here so they could, call in. And then once we do that, then we will get started with the interview with them. Like I said, going to have, a few things to talk about with the two fight cards that are coming up through Top Rank. And I will go into a little bit with that announcement. I think that one caller will talk about that. But right now, we have our special guest on the line. This young man has been, a former boxing manager. He is an author of a few books. One of the books that we will be talking about here on this show. And we'll have a little bit of an announcement that I had come across here with him. So right now, we'll have our special guest here, Mr. Adrian Clark. What's going on there, Brother Adrian?
All good here, man. I'm actually enjoying Sunday with my son, man. How you guys doing?
Oh, doing good, Brother Adrian, doing good. Just wanted to, talk to you here for a little bit about a few things. Like I said, before I added you on, that you were an author, former boxing manager, and I think a current consultant has had a recent announcement about you being part of a group through Anthem Sports and Entertainment. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm signed a TV network deal, man. I'm actually crossing over to television, and this fall I'll have my first TV show actually, which is titled "Protect Yourself at all times." Protect Yourself at all times is something I started in 2016 to help educate the fighters and their families on the business side of professional boxing. So I'm really excited to do that show and really open up the eyes of some people that may or may not know about the business side of boxing.
Yeah. Now, with that, protect yourself at all times. That, like you said, you did kind of seminars, and you wrote a book on that. And I read that book recently, and it's, fairly short, but it's very informational. Has 12 actual chapters in it, has, preface and, some things after the book contents, but you kind of go through some of the most, if not the most essential parts of the boxing business in that particular book.
Yeah, man. I read all of my books short. I don't like reading long books, so I definitely don't want to write long books, but more so just taking in my audience. And, I don't think anyone in professional boxing wants to read a long, drawn-out book, so especially the fighters. So I wanted to make sure that the chapters were short and to the point. And I feel anyone that has read the book, or if you haven't read the book, it's a very easy read, and I don't beat around the bush. I give you the information of the knowledge right up front, and then I have quotes from former world champions, former professional fighters, and even some current fighters on the nature of the business, man. So I feel like, if you think about it, there's no book out there that's like Protect Yourself at All Times, is breaking down the business side of the sport of boxing. So, it's something that I wanted to do after I had my crash course as a boxing manager, and I thought of it, and had some meetings with people like Bernard Hopkins and Oscar De La Hoya and Rob Diaz from Golden Ware Promotions, and I moved forward with it in 2016, and since then it's been a snowball effect, man. Like I said, it wasn't something that I expected to go viral or people would just like to pick up on a mainstream level immediately. Mm-hmm. But since writing that book, man, I've done a podcast, I've done a video blog, partnered with Everlast Worldwide, I've done a documentary, and now I have a TV show, man. So it's definitely a snowball effect, but we're moving. It's been 4 years, and I like the progress that we've made.
Yeah. Now, with that book, like you were saying, you got like a few quotes from former and current boxers that talk about the business. One that was fairly notable to me is Tavares Cloud, given that he's from Tallahassee, Florida, and he went. We both went to Ricketts High School, so like I remember when he basically came into the professional ranks. He kind of like followed in the steps of Travis Walker, who also is from the same area. But a few of the things that you do talk about in the book, and I think it was like in the first chapter, you like put something on there that I kind of told the WBC featherweight champion Gary Russell Jr. is that as a professional boxer, you're also a contractor. And so you have to be able to negotiate the best contract, so to speak, for the fights that you have at the particular point in your career.
Right.
And it just doesn't seem like a lot of these fighters kind of understand that.
It's more than 95% of them. And the first chapter in Protect Yourself at All Times is boxers are business owners, and most guys don't understand that concept. And it's a reason behind it. It's not because the fighters are dumb or stupid, because they're not. I mean, those are the really intelligent individuals. It's just the lack of knowledge and the lack of education. The sport of boxing does not provide a transitional period or a symposium or anything to take you from amateur to the professional ranks. So most of the guys are just used to listening to their coaches and fighting. You do that for 5 to 10 years as an amateur, and then you move on to the professional ranks and you get your license, and you find yourself still listening to your trainer and listening to your manager, but you're not moving as a business owner, and you're not negotiating. You're hiring someone to negotiate for you, but you're doing it out of ignorance because these individuals know the business, but you don't know the business. So you're just going off of whatever the next person says, and that may or may not be right. So everybody doesn't have an Al Heyman or a Jay Prince, a well-known, respected manager that's going to look out for your best interests. Everyone doesn't sign with those guys. So the guys that don't have the knowledgeable, powerful representative, then they kind of fall between the cracks and they become victims of this industry. So Protect Yourself at All Times is looking to, kind of subside most of the drama and the issues that fighters deal with. But boxers are business owners. That's the first chapter of Protect Yourself at All Times. I always lead with that. It's actually my jab when it comes to talking to fighters or educating fighters and their families, helping them understand that you're a business owner, you're an independent contractor before you're anything else. So the more that the fighters understand that, the better they'll be.
Yeah, and you kind of like put it out there with the jab. The jab is the most important punch out there, and being able to know how to use it, know when to time it, it makes you very effective in that instance. And like you said, there being a business owner, it's like a lot of these young fighters or pretty much experienced fighters don't understand that you're a brand, as you had mentioned in the book. You're a brand, and you got to be able to think and approach things that way. Like you are your own corporation. Like you got to put it as such. So if you don't kind of like protect yourself, as in the book, as that corporation, then you're gonna be making money, but you're also gonna be losing a lot of money. Like you're supposed to be making the most profit off of your business, but if you ain't doing that, and then you slipping.
Yeah, and the cycle has been this way for decades, man. This is not a 10-year or a 5-year problem that just started. This has been going on for decades, man. If not a full century, which the sport is about a century old. It's been going on since the beginning, man. And and the sport is majority minority. It's majority African American and guys of black descent. So but not to make it about race, of course, but a sport that's majority minority, but it has very minimal, if none, proper information to help guys not get taken advantage of, then it's a real big disadvantage. The promoters are protected by their contracts. The managers are protected by their contracts, but the fighters essentially, the only one that's essentially protecting the fighter is the referee inside the ring. And you hope your corner is in your best interest. But in regards to, I have a problem with a lot of things that are structured in the sport of boxing, especially the heavy percentage base of wages that the fighters have to pay, whether it be management or trainers. But the percentage wages are heavy. But like most of these guys that are negotiating the contracts, man, like you're asking for 33% of my income, but like you don't have any experience negotiating contracts. You don't have the education of a lawyer or someone that is in the experience of negotiating contracts, but you want 33% of my income. That makes zero sense to me as a businessman myself. So there's a lot of things that I touch on in the book, and it's only gonna I'm gonna keep pushing, man. And now with this TV show, I'll have a visual aid to really help me out with the message I'm trying to relate to individuals. So it's gonna get really interesting in the next couple of months, man.
Yeah, and with what you're saying here is basically the thing about it being a poor man's sport being ran by rich men, kind of. That's kind of how I summarize it. Because you were going through, like you said, a little bit of an example with the contracts. And, you had an example, so to speak, of like say a fighter that was in a fight and he got $1 million purse for the fight. But when it's all broken down, that $1 million turns into $539,000 or something like that. Right, yeah. So, and then that's before taxes and everything else. Like there's, a couple of other things, a couple of other technicalities that aren't put in there, like, the flights, getting, your family in there, the sparring partners you have to pay, all that other stuff. Insurance, which is one of the important things that you talked about in your book. It's a lot. Right. And so, like, that's for $1 million. It's like, give it, like, what if I, like, said that somebody, had got a 10,000 for a fight. There's 10,000. And break that down.
But oh yeah, and it's like guys are really essentially fighting them for nothing, man. It's like you're almost fighting for free because, like I said, the overhead expenses are too high. I sometimes give the example of LeBron James, even though LeBron James is employed by the National Basketball Association, but he's a professional athlete that makes something LeBron probably makes, let's say, $30 million per year, and his agent, LeBron's agent, who's licensed through the NBA, who had a thorough background check of not only criminal background, but also education and the knowledge or the experience of negotiating contracts. The NBPA, which is the union, the labor union for the players, they make sure that those agents, everyone that's certified, they make sure that you are legit. They make sure that you have the education and the experience. But LeBron James only paid his agent 4% of his $30 million contract. And with his training situation, strength and conditioning or whatever, that's not a percentage of his contract. He pays them the fee for his workouts or whatever, but it doesn't tap into a percentage of his contract. And that's a guy making $30 million. But if you get a guy that is making, let's say, $100,000, and you're paying your manager 33%, your trainer 10%, your cut man 3%, you don't have any money. By the time it's all said and done, man. So, I'm just trying to open eyes, man. And like the old folks used to tell me, when you know better, you'll do better. So the whole point of protect yourself at all times, besides educating and informing the fighters on how to do better, it's giving the information to hope that they will know better and do better with their careers, man. Because it's I've experienced guys retiring, and you've seen it also. Once you retire from the sport of boxing, that's your last check from the sport. You would never see another purse from that. The WBC, no matter how many titles you won, they're not sending you checks or residuals or whatever from what you did for them. Nope. It's over with once it's over with. So I'm just trying to educate as many guys as possible, really catch the young guys that are in the amateurs and get them ready, and see what happens from there.
Yeah, you mentioned the thing there with the WBC. Like, I forgot to include that in the $1 million thing as far as like fighting for a world title, because it's like, hey, you got to get 3%. You got to pay them 3% for quote unquote keeping the belt, and then you like I say, you break it all down and thinking about the WBC. That kind of reminds me of when Miguel Cotto fought Canelo Alvarez, and before that fight, he had to pay step aside fee, and then after he paid the step aside fee, they said you got to pay a percentage of this, and he's like, you know what, man, fuck that, man, I ain't paying it. I'm dropping that joker. So
exactly. And even Canelo, in so many words, he's got there. Where it's like he understands that he doesn't need the title belt to make him more money or whatever. So I'm not saying that the title belt should be banished or whatever, but I do feel like it's like the 3%. It'd be different if it were for like a membership type thing, to where there were benefits involved with me paying the 3% for the belts that I have. But I just feel like none of the title sanctions provide anything that's worth the fighters paying 3% for. Like, what exactly am I getting for it? Each time I defend this belt, I have to pay 3%. What am I getting from that? What am I gaining from that? And I feel like exactly. So until that's described, man, until that's laid out, I definitely want to know more about what's involved with it. So I definitely have a lot of questions and a lot of things that may rub people the wrong way, but I'm totally fine with that, because it turns into a conversation, and conversation turns into understanding. If the conversation is good, and we'll go from there. But I definitely have a lot of questions for all of the title sanctions in regards to the 3% for all of the belts that they have, the WBA World, regular
gold, silver, Continental Americas. The thing is, with the belts, before I see if I can get another caller in to see if they have a question. Thing about the belts is, they can get you to a certain point, but once you reach a level of popularity and things like that, then it really isn't much for you to hold the belts, because once you rise in popularity, of course, your money's going to go up. And when the money goes up, the more money you got to pay off to these organizations. So we're talking about just one belt. What if you're the unified champ? That's
you're unified. You're paying 12% of your money just for holding the belts. I just, like, for me, I would love, and this is where a labor union, even though a union is going to be difficult right now for boxing, but a fighters council, I feel like the sanctions, the belt sanctions, should have to answer to someone or something, some entity that's the voice of the fighters, for where, okay, if you guys are saying, okay, 3% to fight for the belts, what's included with that 3% besides just the leather and pieces of metal? We need to know what exactly the fighters are gaining from that 3%. And then from there, the negotiation process begins. I think it should be lowered to maybe a 1% or 2%. But again, that's just me being, I'm definitely an antagonist with some things, but I need answers from the belt sanctions. I got respect for them, but there has to be a better process in regards to this.
Sometimes there ain't no problem being an antagonist for this type of stuff, man. So I had like one caller that was here, but someone on queue, 973 area code. You're on with Boston Source and Adrian Clark. Do you have a question?
Good evening. Okay. Well, we know with UFC making strong strides since the virus. Do you think that boxing is on its way back, and can they get a good matchup?
I think it's on its way back. I see Top Rank is going to do some shows. I believe this coming up weekend. to entertain the fans without actually fans being in attendance. But I feel like the matchups need to be spread out. Don't give everything all at once. Let's make sure we spread things out throughout the rest of the year to keep fans entertained. But I do feel like boxing is going to make a big comeback. You have to do something to answer what Dana White and the UFC are doing, because they're putting on some amazing matchups, and the fights are really, really exciting. So it's like time now to put on. Right, yeah, the boxers have to step up now to really deliver, so we can so we don't get washed out too much by UFC.
Yeah. 813. You there with us too?
I don't think Mike Tyson back in the ring is a good idea, though.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Him and Evander. I mean, it's exciting to talk about, but I'm not a fan of paying for that fight. It's good to kind of go back in time as far as like a time machine goes, but I wouldn't want to pay for that fight. I don't think boxing should go in that direction. We have too many great fighters that are current, that are active, and too many great fighters young to try to do something. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Sorry.
And they're young because Tyson is 53 years old. I don't think a 53-year-old should be being back in the boxing ring.
I totally agree. With you. Like I said, it's good to see him in shape. It's good to see him working out. But he's had his time, and his time has passed on, and now it's these young guys' time, and we should definitely let them have the platform and make the best fights with them.
Well, I mean, with that, it's kind of a little bit bothersome for some, some pro fighters that even though they kind of like want Tyson to be there in an exhibition match, that there were offers of up to $20 million for Mike Tyson to fight. And it's like, okay, I know that he's one of the most captivating fighters that we've ever had. You know what I mean? But still, you got these other younger guys that want that shot to be featured there or be in the spotlight. And so, even if Mike Tyson had a fight with Evander Holyfield, which I kind of feel like was a favor, kind of like a favor by Holyfield, I still don't think that it's not a good time to like try to do something to that particular capacity.
I don't like to stand in the way of anybody's hustle, man. So if they can do it for, let's say, an exhibition match, somewhere, and half of the money goes to charity, and then Evander and Mike can make some money, then I'm all for it. But I don't want, it's kind of like when the gamers, when Logan Paul and KSI, and they're getting $1 million purses, and these fighters have been sacrificing their lives. I don't mind it because it brings other fans to the sport, but at the same time, let's do that in an exhibition type setting, and let's not take away from these guys that actually give their lives for the sport. So I don't mind it, but in an exhibition sense, not in a professional setting to where Top Rank or Matchroom or Golden Boys Pro. I don't like that.
Right. 813, you there with us?
I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm here, Jake.
Oh yeah, man. I could hardly hear you on the thing, man. So you had something to say to Brother Adrian, or a question?
Yeah, what's up, Adrian? First one, this is Terrell from Tampa, long-time supporter of the show, and watches my number one sport for lifetime. But so I'm glad to hear about all the things all the perspective that you're giving us in terms of boxing and behind the scenes stuff, and even in particular, a couple of things like when you guys talk, and we talked about this stuff on the show before, where Canelo basically vacated the WBC belt, and because he got to the point where he didn't need the belt, because as we know now, he's now the cash cow of boxing. We know that, and that's something I rule that's passed down from him. Mayweather, Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., people like that. There's always been a one central point cash cow boxing, and that now is Canelo. So we can basically make moves like one moves. So in regards to that, we look back a few years ago when Terrence Crawford united the division at 140, and he said that, well, hey, I don't have any more challenges at 140. I beat everybody. I unified the entire division. I got all the belts. So and first of all, we know that boxing's a business. So I look at that now, based on what you guys are talking about now. Did he truly want to move up because there's no more challenges, or was this financially feasible for him to just go to 147 and potentially make more, even though he has to get that pay fight? saying the 140, paying all those sanction fees every time you fight, things like that. And even secondly, what you guys were talking about earlier, I watched a video recently with Robert Garcia, and he just talking about how he's plays the role of an assistant manager and trainer, things like that. And now you guys broke about how there's different fees for training, cut band, things like that. And one thing I admire about Garcia's camp, they actually educate their fighters and challenge them to make the right financial decision, right? Like you say, it's going to take for a while for you guys to make some real good money, but the money that you do make right now, what are you doing for right now for a rainy day? And like I said, it's like that's it. So many fighters don't realize that, and they just live this extravagant lifestyles. Quote, quote, just to throw a name out there, Adrian Broder. Just to throw a name out there, but boxing years down the line, you're done with boxing, and like I said, those big paychecks are gone. And if you haven't migrated to like TV, for example, what are you doing now? And so it's just interesting to see that people like Robert Garcia, like I said, they're educating their fighters. But at one point in time, it wasn't like that. It's just a lot of shit. Just trying to get as much money as they fighter until they shot, and then throw them away. So it's just so funny to see that in boxing.
I want to touch on something you said about Terrence with Crawford. I just feel like it's time for him now to get that dance partner that is gonna. To me, he's a great fighter, but I just the business side of things, it plays a factor. He re-signed a long-term deal with Top Rank,
right,
and then moved to 147. But you look at it, their roster. Who do they have at 147 that can catapult him to the mainstream elite in the 147 division? So
like Keith Swiss says, nobody.
Yeah, I feel like Terrence should have, and again, it's some disrespect to him or his team, but I just feel like he should have made a business move and moved in the direction that was gonna land him a big fight at 147. I'm not there saying he should have signed with PBC because Al Heyman does have most of the 147 fighters, but I just feel like Terrence should have done a little bit more searching around and going to visit with people before he made a decision to go back with Top Rank. So I feel like he's just, he needs a good dance partner, whether that's Errol Spence or whether that's a Sean Porter or someone else that has a major name in the 147 division. He's missing a dance partner right now, and currently all those dance partners are at a different location at their own little ball, and he's on the other side of the town looking to get to that location. And I hope to see some of those fights, but there's a business that's in the way of most of these major fights that we as fans want to happen, but the business is in the way. And then the second thing you said with Coach Garcia's camp, I didn't know that about him educating the guys, and if that's the case, that's great. Me for one, I'm not a fan of the trainer being the manager. Also, I feel like there's a huge conflict of interest that's there, but he's done a good job of looking out for his fighters and making sure that they get the right fight. And also, he has a great relationship with different promotional companies to get his guys promotional deals and not just have them freelance fighting. So as long as the education is in place and the guys are happy, then there's no harm, no foul that's there. So he's definitely a great trainer. Don't know much about him as manager, but I definitely know he's a great trainer, and hopefully he continues to get his guys opportunities.
Yeah, that's the thing there with Robert Garcia. He does have himself a little bit of a stable, and he's able to direct each one of those fighters in the way that works best for each one of them. So that in some cases is a good thing, but like you said, as far as like trainers also being the managers, that could also be a dangerous position there for the fighter because they could be put in a situation where if they end up losing, then that relationship that you had with your trainer, with him being a manager, that kind of like breaks up a little bit. So that's kind of a slippery slope in that particular instance. But you were talking about the thing with Terrence Crawford. Yeah, I think it's an interesting situation now because we don't know what is going to be next for Terrence Crawford. I mean, a lot of people are talking about him potentially fighting Sean Porter, but the thing about it is that, you know, with all of those other guys being at PBC, they could just say, hey, you know what? I got Errol Spence. He says that he wants to fight Danny Garcia, and Sean Porter could be fighting Keith Thurman in the rematch because Keith Thurman said he don't mind having a rematch with Sean Porter. So if that ends up happening, then what do you have? Because guess what? Manny Pacquiao, whether he's still working with Al Heyman or not, he could end up fighting Mikey Garcia. Then what are you going to do?
It's monopoly at its finest, man. You know, Al Heyman is a very smart human being, and you know, Terrence has put himself and his team has put himself in a interesting situation. But with that being said, Bob Arum is great in his own right, also. But the odds are really against Terrence Crawford because with Al Heyman advising his guys, it's like, yo, why go over there and potentially make less money and potentially take a loss, man? Right where you're at, make a lot of money and be put in a fight that you could win. It's Terrence that's going to have the uphill battle to get the fights against the Errol Spences, the Sean Porters, Danny Garcias, things of that nature. So he's going to have an uphill battle with that. But again, the business side, these guys are trained warriors, man. Mm-hmm. They want to fight each other. No one is scared. No one is scared to fight anyone. It's the business side of the sport that's preventing these great fights from happening. But again, Terrence his team should have done more due diligence and shopped around before saying, yeah, we're definitely going back to top rank. I mean, if you were going to stay at 140, then probably that's a good move. But if you're going up to 47, then yeah, you should have definitely shopped around before signing a long-term promotional pack with Top Rank, which he's probably going to retire with them. So hopefully these fights can happen, man. But you know, if I'm in Al Heyman's spot, I mean, he's already monopolized the game a lot. He's not. There's no weight on him to make any fights with Top Rank or Terrence Crawford. So yeah, the uphill battle is for Top Rank and Terrence.
Yeah, especially at 147 and 154. That's where PBC, you know, has all of those, or pretty much most of those fighters. But, you know, with Bob Arum is like, Terrence Crawford, that's a guy I just feel is the best welterweight out there. I don't care what those other guys at PBC are doing. They got to come over and fight Terrence Crawford. And they're going to lose to Terrence Crawford. No, I'm just kidding. Real quick, wanted to add in from the 646 area code, the president of the Deontay Wilder fan club and the president of the Clarissa Shields fan club, Mr. Matthew Brown. What's going on?
Kill this back! What's good, JR? How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm struggling to this day. I'm just kidding, man. Yo, I'm good. Like I said, we got boxing manager, author of Protect Yourself at All Times, consultant, and, you know, now he is going to be part of Fight Network, Mr. Adrian Clark, who has, you know, managed guys like James De La Rosa, past guests Willie Monroe Jr. and Frank Galarza.
Oh, wow. That's a good guess, man. Yo, listen, you kind of big time it now, man. You getting all these special guests on here, man. I feel like I don't deserve to even call in anymore, man.
Man, oh, here we go.
But I heard you guys talking about Terrence Crawford and basically if he's going to be able to fight anybody of substance that we care about, like crossover and fighting PBC guys. And, you know, I really don't see why it can't happen. I don't see why, at the very least, why he can't fight Porter next. I just don't see why it can't happen. Put it on pay-per-view. I will pay money to see that. Put it on pay-per-view. Let them put it on ESPN plus pay-per-view. The same way they do UFC. So that way, it doesn't have to. They don't have to give half the money to the cable providers because it's going straight through the ESPN Plus app. So I don't understand why they can't make fights like that for Terrence Crawford. They seem to do okay with UFC the way that they promote it and put it on the app, and people buy that pay-per-view through the app. So why can't they do that with Terrence Crawford?
You know, and I'm with you. I agree with what you said. Like, I don't see why it can't happen, but at the same time, knowing that Premier Boxing Champions has an exclusive deal with Fox and also Showtime, and then, you know, Top Rank has an exclusive deal with ESPN. Sean Porter and Terrence Crawford are just not a major enough draw to do like a split. Like, I can't remember what fighters it was that I think it was Mayweather and Pacquiao. You know, with one showed on, I think it was Showtime or something of that nature. Another one was on HBO. I think it was something of that. It was a big enough draw to do that split because you knew the money was going to be there. But I think the only way you can go with doing the ESPN Plus and Fox split will be Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford because they're big enough names and the draw is there. But Sean Porter, Terrence Crawford fight, someone will have to it'd be like give and take. Either Sean Porter would have to go to ESPN Plus to fight, and Fox will have to take a loss on that, or Terrence Crawford would have to go to Fox, and ESPN will have to take a loss. So there's just so much red tape as far as the business goes that's in between that I don't think Al Heyman or Bob Arum want to do that negotiation process. So, I mean, that's why we won't see the fight immediately. But I agree with you, man. I want to see these fights. It's just there's so many things in between with the business side that, prevents a lot of these great fights from happening. But I do agree with you, though.
Well, here's one thing that, I kind of find interesting when it comes to Bob Arum. He does, work with other promotional companies with his fighters, but usually he does it when he has, a lot of confidence that his fighter is going to win that particular fight. So, for example, he has no issues with, Jose Ramirez going up against Maurice Hooker on the zone because, well, he feels that Ramirez will beat Hooker. He had no doubt that Vasyl Lomachenko was going to beat Luke Campbell. So he's like, they can have that fight. It's no problem. But with, a Terrence Crawford, why can't he put a Terrence Crawford over on Fox or something like that, Or, just have that deal so that he can fight Terrence, fight a Sean Porter or something like that.
Man. You don't want your top guy taking that loss, man. So I mean, I get it from both sides, but I want to see great fights happen, man. And if they work together to make Wilder and Fury happen twice, then I feel like there should be some give and take to make sure that these other fights between Top Rank and Premier Boxing Champion guys, I feel like there should be some give and take to make these fights happen. But I mean, we're coming back off of a long layoff for boxing with the pandemic. So hopefully, we get some great fights made, and these promoters are more open to work with each other because money has been lost over the past couple months. Millions of dollars arguably has been lost with the promoters. So hopefully, they're more susceptible to make these fights happen for the next remainder of this year and on into 2021.
Well, before I go into, that little topic there with promoters, going into, this thing here with the fights, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how these things shape up once, things become more open, that, they'll be able to have these particular fights because, like you said, some of them, they're going to have these big fights sooner rather than later. And this is just talking about the large scale promoters. This is not even talking about the ones below them. I mean, I've had the likes of Dimitri Salita on, and someone like him, is trying to get his guys, involved in big fights, whether he's, full-time promoting or, co-promoting with some of the fighters, because you also, I think, worked at one point with Jarrell Big Baby Miller, who is now in a co-promotional deal with Salida and Top Rank. But you also have like others that work with, with other promoters, like through main events or, something like that, where they might not have that type of leeway to, work with these fighters because they might not have the money to spread around to get them in the fights that, those fighters need and the promoters need in order to make their money back.
This is why I hope, although I hate, what went on with the pandemic and it affected everyone's livelihoods across the world, and there was a loss of life and, a loss of livelihood for most people. But, the sports and everyone is getting creative now, coming back out the gate to, get things back jump-started. And I hope that the powers that be in professional boxing see that it's important to associate the sport. If the sport of boxing was associated like the NBA or the NFL, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now with making certain fights happen or making sure local and middle of the road promoters pretty much have breath, so to speak, because you think about the MLB. The MLB has like farm teams, or the NBA has the G League, where the major teams pretty much fund the farm leagues or the G League team. So just for an example, when I wrote about this in my recent book titled Dark Horse, which is my memoirs as a boxing manager, think about if Golden Boy Promotions had an affiliate promoter, which is Thompson. Let's say it's Thompson Boxing. So the younger prospect that Golden Boy either signs or looking to build up, that they can fight through Thompson Boxing, and Top Rank could have, let's say, Roy Jones Jr. Promotions, to where, guys that they've either signed, young guys they signed, they can build up through Roy's company, and main events can be under a Matchroom or...
like Cabela Entertainment is also another one.
Yes, exactly. Just throwing out names. Like I feel like if everything is associated under one roof, then the sport of boxing will be in a much, much, much better spot than what it is right now, with everything being so independent. I would love to see everybody get under, even though I know it's not going to happen, but I would love to see all the promoters get under the Premier Boxing Champion models. Premier Boxing Champion can be the staple of boxing. So when people see PBC, they automatically identify with boxing. And under the PBC brand, you have Golden Boy Promotions, Top Rank, Matchroom, Main Events, all the major promoters. And then we could have also another pretty much an affiliate league that bring up the younger prospects in the sport. I feel like that would be not only genius for one, but it keeps everything under one roof. That way you have the association, you can have a labor union for the fighters, and it's more structure and order to make it work better for everyone that's involved. So, I wrote about it in my book, and it's a pipe dream that probably is for decades for now, but I feel like the sport of boxing being associated, it subsides so many problems. Even the fights, we can see Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence easy because everything is under the association. Imagine the New York Knicks never playing the Los Angeles Lakers. If they were in two different associations or whatever it may be. Imagine those two not being able to match up. It's kind of stupid. So I hope one day that the sport of boxing is associated and there's a labor union to protect the fighters, and I think things will go easier from there. But again, that's something that's decades down the line, but it's worth to have the conversation now.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth the conversation to kind of like have something like that. But I think it's more of like a unionized organization through the sport of boxing, because the thing is, like, the fighters got to be able to negotiate to protect themselves as far as like what they get in their contracts, how they're treated by the boxing organizations, the sanctioning bodies, the athletic commissions, and all that type of stuff. So that all of those groups have to be able to work together to make the sport of boxing, safer and lucrative for all parties. And I'm not sure like why they haven't really, done all of that. But like I was saying before, boxing is a poor man's sport run by rich men. So it's kind of like how the game goes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Anyone else out here have a question for Brother Adrian?
I really got nothing, JR. I think y'all said it all.
Yeah. Now,
Kick back and get some knowledge, know what I mean?
yeah, I feel you.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I feel you.
Appreciate it.
Now, the thing here with the Fight Network, like I think that announcement pretty much came like a couple of months ago. So like go into that a little bit more, like going to work with that Fight Network.
It's a television network that's based out of Canada, and it's Impact Wrestling is also a part of the Fight Network. Although Impact Wrestling is now mostly seen on Access Television, but the Fight Network, as far as like Canada and other countries, is the #1 combative sports channel. On those particular countries. It's just in the United States, the Fight Network is not as known, and if people do know about it, it's more so for their Impact Wrestling base or the MMA fans that have followed the Fight Network since 2005. So it's been around for a while. It's just the boxing presence has not been there. So I met with the owner, Lynn Asper, who's a very successful businessman out of Canada. We met in Dallas when he bought Access Television from Mark Cuban, which was I think late last year when he made that purchase. So having that under the Anthem Sports and Entertainment umbrella is big for all the stations, from Fight Network to the esports gaming company that he has. It's just there's a lot that Lynn is doing, and I was skeptical at first. Meeting with him because I just sold my company, so I was working with Silent G Group at the time, looking to build a sports a boxing division for them. But when I sat with Lynn and kind of got his vision on things and kind of added my vision in with his, it just made sense, man. It made sense. So I had to. It wasn't tough for me to wave goodbye to boxing management because I felt like I did everything that I wanted to do. Up until that time, it had been 9 years, and I did everything. So going the television route and being able to get my message out, will protect yourself at all times, but also implement other original boxing programming to the Fight Network. I was really interested in taking that challenge, and I decided to sign the deal, and here I am. But that's going to be my role for the next few years, to make sure that we're putting the best original boxing programming on the Fight Network and building more of a name in the United States. Canada and other countries are really familiar with the Fight Network, and they tune into different programming from whether it be kickboxing or different MMA shows that they have. But I feel it's time to really put boxing stamps on the Fight Network, and I'm glad that Lynn looked to me, young black millennial at that, to bring the forefront of boxing to the Fight Network. So it's definitely gonna be a journey, a tough one, but I'm young, and he's giving me free range to bring all my creative ideas to the Fight Network. So it's gonna be a good ride, man. It's gonna be a good ride.
Yeah,
I got a question about that.
Go ahead.
How much of a focus are you gonna put on because, like you said, the Fight Network shows Impact Wrestling, and right now Impact Wrestling made history because they have a woman as world heavyweight champion. You guys take any ideas from that and maybe try to see if you can corner the market on women's boxing?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. You pinpointed something that we've been talking about, even though again we can't really do much movement because of the COVID situation. But yes, you hit something right on the head, just putting a focal point on the females in professional combative sports. It's something that's going to be big for us. And then also putting a spotlight on amateur boxing is really investing not only dollars, but also camera time to a lot of these major amateur events, whether it be male or female, that's going on. But yeah, I was actually at that fight with Tessa, where she became pretty much the first female world champion. That was here in Dallas. I was actually at that fight to witness that. And people, they have their debates with wrestling and fake or real. There's a lot of contact in professional wrestling. I did. My first time going to a fight, of course, was the WWF back in the day, back in the 90s. My dad took me and my brother, but I had been since then. And of course, I was going into it like, oh man, I'm used to real fighting, hand-to-hand combat. I'm about to sit down and watch this fake stuff. But man, I'll tell you what, there's so much contact in professional wrestling, man. I was really impressed by the superstars in the sport for Impact Wrestling, but then also the job they did. But yes, I'm glad you asked that question, because we are going to put a focal point on the female superstars in the sport. I would love to, of course, have a sit down with Clifton Shields and other females that are up and coming in the sport of boxing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that Matt would look forward to meeting with Clarissa Shields.
I'll come in first. I got you. Yeah, no, it's gonna be interesting, man. Like I said, I'm really excited to really jumpstart everything, and the Fight Network has a lot of potential. Just being a channel that specializes or just really puts a spotlight on combative sports, and they went and got somebody that not only was in the business. I fought a little bit as far as amateur ranks, so I didn't fight professional. I wasn't ready to go that route. My last fight showed that, but to actually get somebody that has experience, whether it be negotiating for the fighters or doing business with the promoters, or just doing innovative things in the sport of boxing. I feel like we're off to a good start with the Fight Network, and now it's just a point of executing, man. And as long as we execute, everything will be good.
Well, I didn't bring this up earlier, but you were included in the Forbes 30 under 30. Kind of go into that.
You have to be. I don't know who nominated me for that, but you have to be nominated, and then there's this 5-month process to where I think the judges for that year is Carmelo Anthony, Steve Ballmer, who owns the Clippers, and a couple other prominent sports figures. They decide with the vote on who's gonna be the 30 top professionals in a particular genre. So I happened to make the top 30 for sports. And most of the guys that made it were professional athletes. I think I was one of the only few. I definitely was the only black that made it that was not an athlete. But we had just different individuals that were making strides or doing innovative things in baseball, football, basketball, or whatever sport it was. So I mean, it definitely was a shock to me. For one to be nominated, and then to be a finalist, and then to actually be selected as one of the top 30 in the world for that matter. But it made me work harder, man. It made me work harder, and now knowing that you kind of got a target on your back, even though no one's after me, but people are looking to see what you're going to do. You make a list like that, they want to see what you're going to do afterwards. So that was 2016, and here we are in 2020, and I've done some. But if I could say so myself, I've done some really cool and innovative things since making that list in 2020, and I'm still going, man. So I'm just enjoying the journey and just continuously challenging myself and making sure that I'm being bold and not being afraid to voice my ideas, my opinions, or just do some crazy creative stuff and see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, making a list like that, makes you, hungry to do, even more, so that, like you said, when you have that so-called target on your back, or all of these, people watching to see what you do next, that just makes you motivated to say, hey, I could do this. I could probably do this. I could, have access to these different things as well. So, being on that list and kind of like having that status, opens the door for, a lot of things there. So that you'll be able to, do what you're doing now.
Yeah, man. Just trying to stay at it, man, and continue to capitalize and continue to create, man. So I'm excited just the entire journey as a whole, man. And now I have my son. I have a 20. Pretty much he's almost 2. So he's watching now, and that's more important than anything else. So I mean, I had drive before, but now it's like, I really gotta hit on all cylinders because he's not only watching, but all of this is now, it's gonna be my legacy left in his hands. So I'm really good. He's looking at me right now out the window. But yeah, that's my journey now, man. It's my goal to make sure that my little man is good.
Yeah, I feel you, man. So, with that being said, man, I wanted to see if you could just tell us where we could follow you on social media, and if you have any websites out there as well.
Yeah, so my website is adrianclark.org. And you can go to my website to order my books, even though you can find my books on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. But they're all available on adrianclark.org. As far as social media goes, I'm not really heavy on Twitter, but the Adrian Clark is my handle on Twitter. I never tweet, so you'll pretty much I'm a ghost follower on there. I don't say anything, but Instagram I'm pretty active on, and that's AC_Clark. And on Facebook, Adrian Clark with AC in parentheses. That's my handle, and I'm pretty active on Facebook. But yeah, man, people reach out. I'm usually prompt to respond to messages or whatever it may be. And if it's consulting piece, then you can reserve a spot with me. But if you just have questions, just general questions, I'll answer more than likely on social media. But yeah, I'm active, man. I'm out here just looking to just keep building, and I thank you guys for having me on, man. Gary is someone that's been a good friend of mine for a while now. Just watching his journey on social media and him being a long-time supporter of me. Yeah. I'm glad he linked us together for us to come together and essentially break bread and get to know each other, man, and do this cool interview.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, Gary is a very good friend of mine, and he's been my biggest contributor to the show over the years. And when he linked me up with you, he was like, "Yeah, you got to talk to this guy, man. He's a very good guy to talk with." So that's like I had to get you on, man.
No, I appreciate it, man. And anything I can do for you guys going forward, man. You guys have my number now, so don't hesitate to reach out, and I wish you guys the best, and I look forward to hearing from you guys soon.
All right, no doubt. So we'll get you there back with your son, so y'all can enjoy the rest of the day. And thank you very much for being part of this podcast, there, Brother Adrian.
Hey, no problem, my man. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right.
All right, peace.
Peace. There is Brother Adrian Clark there. So I'm just going to see if I could get my guy back in. Yeah, hold on here just a second. Because I wanted to have something to talk about here, but I got to get my guy back on because I know that there's one topic that Brother Matt wanted to speak about, but we'll kind of hold off on that here for a bit. I wanted to get into the fight cards that are happening starting on Tuesday, excuse me, and then on Thursday with Top Rank, headlined by, the fight with the fighter that holds the WBO featherweight championship currently, Shakur Stevenson, going up against Felix Carballo. And we had, one fight that was also scheduled there that was going to be the co-feature that would have had Michaela Mayer there against Helen Joseph, but We received, news earlier today that Michaela Mayer would not be able to fight on Tuesday due to testing positive for COVID-19 there. So that was, kind of a real setback there once we heard the news earlier today. So, Matt, you got any thing to say about that particular news of Michaela Mayer?
Yeah, I know this might sound like a dumb question to people out there, but why exactly can't she fight with COVID?
I mean, if we, could me, I could basically break it down and say what the statistics are for COVID, like how many people actually get it, and then how many people actually recover from having COVID.
Yeah.
So
and Deontay Wilder fight so he's the first time with the flu.
Yeah, I think he did. I think he did. I think he pulled a little bit of a Michael Jordan or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. And the flu, they get passed on basically the same way as COVID. So I'm not sure why you can fight with the flu, but you can't fight with COVID-19. I don't get it.
Matt, I just thought of one of the worst jokes that I could have thought of when you mentioned what you mentioned, but I'm gonna let it pass. I can't do it. I can't do it. But we got Terrell back on here with us, man. Real quick before I even go into the other fights that are featured on there, I wanted Matt to kind of talk about one particular topic when it comes to the guy that he is the president of the fan club for. So, Matt, could you please expound on that topic?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me about it because I got beat with Mr. 813, Mr. Terrell, Mr. Farrell, whatever he is going by now. I got beat with him, and I'm going to tell you why. I was on Twitter, okay?
Oh, no.
Doing my usual, going up and down the timeline, this, that, and the other, right? And then I see a post come up. And the post came up because it said Terrell Thomas likes the post. So I read the post. And the post said, Wilder a poet now? You know someone else wrote it. It's been 34 years, and he's still trying to get through the second page of Dr. Seuss, One Fish, Two Fish, a literate clown. This is a guy before boxing. He's a master of poetic justice. And then, not only did he like it, he commented. He said, why make such a dramatic video? Just make a calm, effective message for the people. And I'm here to put Terrell officially on trial. Play my music! Play my music!
Oh no! Wait, did you say? Wait! Did you say on trial?
On record!
Oh.
This is the Bomb Squad versus Mr. Terrell Thomas. The charge is slander in the first degree. My brother, Deontay Wilder, put a message out there for the people. And once again, haters, the enemies of the Bomb Squad must find a way to
Hold on.
What's going on, bro? What you guys saying to yourself, man? I have a whole lot to say about that. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you're just checking your Twitter feed as you typically do. So let me start right here. Now, we all here on the show are proud black men, right? And I think it was James. James was the one that brought to my attention that there was that Wilder had made a video in regards to the arm wrestle that's going on right now within the country. Even before I saw Joshua's video he put up, and there's a lot of backlash he's got from that. So we'll get to that later on. So boom, I jumped on Twitter. I watched Deontay Wilder's video, and first of all, I'll give him credit because this is not the first time that he's spoken out in regards to being black, the 40 years of oppression, things like that. This is not the first time. This is not so. He's not just jumping on a movement. So big up to him for that. But so I watched the video. I was like, what? That was my first reaction. Like, what? You know? I'm like, why don't he just simply calm down and deliver a nice, useful message that people can use? Because I tell you what, when I watched the video, it seemed manufactured. It didn't seem particularly authentic, given what's going on within the country right now. I mean, all this, I'm like, dude, calm down. Talk to the people. Don't make this, it's not a show. Play to. We don't need all that acting and portraying it, all that. We don't need all that, and that's why I commented the way I did. You know, so that's why I did that.
So
you got that right.
With that being said, President of the Deontay Wilder Fan Club, what is your verdict?
Guilty. Absolutely guilty. Guilty. First of all, let's play the video for the people. I'm playing right now on the phone. Play right now.
Oh man.
believe in them just themselves. And you have to attack them. How dare you? How dare you?
Oh goodness.
All right, let's once again, brother. First of all, like I said, he has on numerous times spoke passionately about being black, the oppression that we went through. I applaud him for that. Because you know how many people do you see out there doing that? Not many at all. How many top black fighters do you see that doing that? Not many at all. Not many at all. So I applaud him for that. But on this particular instance, on this particular video, me as a consumer of that, I don't need that speak with that type of delivery. It could have been a whole just calm delivery and talk to the people.
Hey.
You don't need all that. That's the only first thing.
Hey, Matt, how come he couldn't do like a sit down like he did with that other video talking about your king is here? You know, they don't know what it means to fight. like he could have did something like that, but like some people kind of were a little bit bothered by it because they felt like it was more of a promotion for Deontay Wilder than it was for speaking on what's going down with the current issues with George Floyd and, you know, what happened with Tamir Rice and Sandra Bland and all of the men and women that, you know, fell to police violence. And, you know, some people want to like compare it to Anthony Joshua, but hey, nah, people weren't as mad about what Deontay Wilder said compared to what Anthony Joshua said. Because, hey, what Joshua said, they had a whole lot more problems with that than what Deontay Wilder said.
I just want to say for the people that Deontay Wilder is the modern day Muhammad Ali. I just want to put that out there. Thank you. Bomb squad, baby. Bomb squad, baby.
I got one comment in regards to that. So prior to Wilder Fury 2, because I'm on Twitter all the time, BBC put a tweet out there, and it was a graphic out there where they suggest that Wilder is about to tie Muhammad Ali's defense record for it. I forgot what it was, and I posted it in our group, and I thought that was sacrilegious now, and I think that what you just said is sacrilegious as well. Come on, man.
Oh man.
And I'm not hating on your brother. I'm not. But he ain't that though.
It is. Hey, Matt, remember, it's not hating, it's constructive criticism.
I hate it. And you know what? As soon as Terrell came on the question show, and he said that it was you who put him on about the video, I should have known with it.
Oh God! Oh my goodness, yo! This is so hilarious, man. Hey. But yeah, going into what Anthony Joshua said, that pretty much pulled the card of a whole lot of fans in the UK. Because I said it in the video. What Anthony Joshua said is, I have zero issues with what he said. Zero. The problem is, a lot of them have issues with what he said because if people there actually did what he said, then you'd have a lot of them over there in the UK with a lot of problems, and they don't want those problems. And the thing is, they didn't need to take what he said in the full context.
Anthony Joshua is what is considered to be one of the good ones. And we know what that means. When people say, oh, you're one of the good ones. Deontay Wilder tried to tell him. Deontay Wilder tried to tell him long time ago. Oh, you know, your palace, you know, you got the whole country behind you. You got Eddie Hearns. You got everything handed to you and fed to you. I had to scratch each fight claw. You know, you were propped up as one of the good ones. But never forget who you are and where you stand in the struggle. Shout out to Bob Marley. And Anthony Joshua, let yesterday, June 6th, forever be known as the day that Anthony Joshua realized you's a nigga too.
Yep. Hey, that's something that, and I had talked about the thing with Nate Campbell's last show that he had on Friday, man. He was talking about, it doesn't matter if you the poorest dude in the projects or if you are a world champion, they still view you as a nigga. And that, like you said, that right there, when he made those comments, which, like I said, I have zero issues with, and there's nothing wrong with what he said. Nothing. They still viewed him as a nigga. Because they said, oh, he's racist for saying that. No, he isn't. Because people actually do what he said. That was the problem.
Yeah.
People actually do what he says.
Even just if you're on that, so you look at that, he's what Nigerian descent, and of course his got his moved over to the UK and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to be careful here because I like Joshua, but like you guys said, this is probably his first real black moment in his life, right? So you got all these white people over there, and they think, and they said, oh, he's one of us. We own him. He's just like us. He won't step out of line. And then all of a sudden now an issue comes up. He speaks on it, and I was proud to listen to this video. Proud to listen to it. I shared it as well on Twitter. And all of a sudden these people, now that all these people don't want to take the right way. This is his nigger moment. You know, it's sad, but this is simply the some brothers people of color can listen, but like I said, until the moment that we speak up, now you're a threat. You're not like that. We thought we owned you, but now we see that we don't.
God, it was saved. We thought it was saved. Basically, that's what it was.
This great IQ, and the words IQ, here's what they think about you. Here's what they think about you.
Yep.
And all of it is coming to the forefront.
Yep. And of course, me and Matt were talking about it earlier before this show, and I kind of like pulled. I posted a video on my personal YouTube page on that. I said, look, y'all just basically showed your hand with your reaction of what he said. Y'all just showed your hand because y'all ain't really about that life. Whether it's this whole thing about this whole Black Lives Matter type stuff or whatever it is, y'all ain't about that life. Because if we really wanted to say something about Black Lives Mattering, and I say a couple of things about it, y'all ain't gonna support it. I know for a fact that they won't. Because if they acted like they acted for what Anthony Joshua said, shoot, they ain't ready for what I would have. Oh my goodness, boy.
Everybody support the black community and Black Lives Matter right up until reparations.
Exactly.
Then all of a sudden, hey, nigga, what's going on here?
Oh, you're like, hold on there, nigga. We ain't saying all that yet. That's why I pretty much almost had to get on one dude that was on Nate Campbell's show. He's like, oh, there's going to be a problem if you pay us this money. I mean, you're going to crash the economy and everything's going to go. I don't care. Y'all paid everybody else, but y'all ain't pay us. They ain't had no problem paying them. Yep, exactly. Wasn't even a country that did it. Like, come on. You mean to tell me that in just what has it been, about 4 or 6 weeks ago, right? You have a stimulus bill. Okay. In that stimulus bill, they gave the Native Americans $3 billion. So you mean to tell me that y'all could give those Native Americans all that land, this whole thing about taxes, and then on top of that, you gave them $3 billion. But you have an issue giving reparations to us. Get out of here with that, son. That ain't how it works. That's the thing that had me upset about it. And I was like, man, y'all UK folks just showed y'all hand right there with that one, buddy. Cause y'all was a fan until he said something. Hey, like I said, hey, he was an Englishman until he made that comment, and then all of a sudden he Nigerian now, huh? All of a sudden now he ain't English no more. He is Nigerian now because he made that comment, right? Okay.
And you should see his Twitter message. I see a lot of go back to where you came from.
Man. Man.
Hey, Matt, what is your Twitter? Huh? What is your Twitter? On Anthony Joshua's Twitter. So I don't know if you know. What is your Twitter
handle?
It's got your face.
Y'all said I have to send you the link.
And you know what? I love Anthony Joshua's statement. Although I didn't think he went far enough, I think he kind of
the follow up,
like a little bit.
His follow up comment. Woo! Yeah, man, he should have. What's that? Yeah, he kind of scaled back a little bit. He's kind of scaled back a little bit on that one. Yeah, the last one.
Yeah, it says, if you think I'm racist, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
If you watch the full video, the speech was passed around for someone to read, and I took the lead. I personally spoke from the heart about the Watford community, ideas of us personally investing 7 figures to create unity of opportunities and adding change to the African/Caribbean community. Shops aren't the issue here. Before you talk shit, you better boycott racism. I said what I said, and I will act to change. Now, on the surface, it doesn't seem like, like he's pushing back a little bit. But when he said, if you watch the full video, he talks about, listen, he shouldn't have to explain himself. He said what he said. It upset whoever it upset. He didn't say nothing wrong.
0. He said nothing wrong, but whatever he said, I don't care if they try to chop it up or anything. What it did, it actually showed those folks' true colors. That's what it did. Because like I said, they just said, you know what? He ain't from the UK no more. He's from Nigeria. That's what they pretty much said. That's what they said. And I'm like, y'all are just some real punks by doing that. Real punks. Because he's all good when he's performing for you, but when he's saying something for his people, y'all got a problem with that. I was like, man, but
Well, welcome to the world of Beyonce Wilder, man. Welcome to his world. He was trying to tell him. He was trying to tell him.
Oh man!
Somebody better go check on Eddie Hearn. Somebody go check on that man. Make sure he's still alive, please.
He's gonna be alive. He's gonna be alive. He's gonna be all good. He's gonna be all good because here's the thing, right? From a business perspective, okay, what is the most lucrative means of marketing in the sport of boxing? Playing a race card. Yeah. It's happened all the way back since Jack Johnson. So, you know what? Line all those guys up. Line the Kubrat Pulev up. Line, line Huey Fury up. Come on.
He should do like that. Do like Shaq did when on his run. When Shaq said he beat the Sabonis, he beat Olszak, he beat Rick Smith, call him the great reporter.
Line them up, I'll knock them down.
You actually made a quick point. Where is Eddie Hearn? And this is a huge in regards to the backlash that Joshua got.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
a proper boxing promoter goes back to the ways of Don King, stuff like that. They can find a controversy, and because what's that old word, old phrase? Any news is good news, whether it be negative or good news or bad news and stuff like that.
Right.
So a good promoter, because we know they can at times be just very slimy, can find some way to take some news, whether it be negative or not, and turn it into positive and promotion for that outfit when it buys and things like that. So it'll be very, very interesting to see if Eddie Hearn can come in somehow and flip this into a story for boxing or somehow for the zone or something like that. And I mean, that's what promoters do, though, right? That's what they do. So,
but here's the thing too. From a market, I would be very interested to see what happens with the sponsorships that Anthony Joshua has. I would like to see what the response is from the zone from what Anthony Joshua said. That's going to tell a lot.
Well, the zone's not going to be in this.
Oh God. Oh God.
My whole thing is, I find it interesting that Anthony Joshua got more backlash from UK fans for saying to invest in his own community than Eddie Hearn's father, Barry Hearn, got for saying on national television that we were slave traders. You remember that performance on Julian White?
Yep, John White, yep.
We were slave traders.
Yep.
And they made excuses for him. Andrew Buzz, here's what you think about you. Welcome to the club, Anthony.
They pulled the card. They pulled that card. Yep. Definitely pulled that card right there. So I was like, man, y'all pretty much exposed yourselves with, what with y'all reactions. Y'all just exposed yourselves.
But also, juxtapose what we saw from Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. Juxtapose that with Mr. All Lives Matter, Tyson Fury.
Well, I don't know how that's going to turn out because they're trying to have Fury Wilder 3 over in Australia. So, like, who's in Australia?
Listen, Wilder has to beat Fury. He just has to. He just has to. If he doesn't, I'll be honest with you, Fury versus Joshua is going to start a civil war in the UK.
It would.
The rapists have popped up. They popped up. They mad. They mad that anything even mentioned the word black.
Yep.
Okay, they mad now, so it's going to be disgusting to see. And Joshua shouldn't be surprised because if you remember when he was pictured praying at the mosque, how much shit he got for that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that should have been, something right there, that should have had him realize what's going on, but boy, oh boy, like I said, man, they just straight up expose themselves, with that one there, man. So I was like, goodness, man. But yo, that's pretty much most of what I got here for this particular podcast. I will be planning a live show during the Tuesday fights. So we're gonna have some commentary during those fights, some reactions to some of the fights there that's going to happen. I know that there's one particular fighter that one of my friends is familiar with. It's going to be in the undercard, but he just feels that he's going to get washed. But I kind of find it interesting though that they're going to have in the same card Robeisy Ramirez, who beat Shakur Stevenson in the Olympics in the gold medal match. And he's had 3 fights and he's already lost a fight to a journeyman. Like, come on, how you gonna be a 2-time gold medalist and you already losing 3 fights in to you lost to a basic scrub, son. Like, come on. So that's gonna be something. You're also gonna have Jared Anderson part of that card against Johnny Langston. Jared Anderson calls himself the real big baby, which is very interesting to say the least. But he had been, as a sparring partner for Tyson Fury. So I guess we'll see him in the spotlight a little bit there on Tuesday, June 9th. And then like I said, on June 11th, headlined by Jesse Magdaleno against NFL Vicente. And you're going to have Adam Lopez in the co-feature against Louis Correa. So we're going to be talking about those particular fight cards on Tuesday and Thursday. So looking forward to that there. But we will have, another version of the Boxing Source radio show live on Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on June 14th. And thank everyone for calling in. I thank Adrian Clark for being part of this particular podcast. And like I say at the end of every show, folks, the point of boxing is to hit and like a hit, not to stand and trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.
Black Lives Matter.